Good day, everyone. This is our repetition from the life of mind. In this excerpt, the authors ask whether what makes us think. To this question, we answer that thinking constantly occurs and constantly interrupts the ordinary process of life, just as ordinary living constantly interrupts thinking. In other words, the trouble arrives with such words as happiness, courage, justice, and so on, because when we try to define them, they get slippery. When we talk about their meaning, nothing stays put anymore, everything begins to move. We say this because, first, the thinking ego has no urge to appear the world of appearances. Second, thinking inevitably has a destructive, undermining effect on all established criteria, values, measurement of good and evil. In short, on those customs and rules of conduct we treat of in morals and ethics. And the third, a life without thinking is quite possible. It then fails to develop its own essence. It is not really meaningless, it is not fully alive. To illustrate the first point, we have experienced that seen from the world of appearances, from the marketplace, the thinking ego always lives in hiding. As for the second point, imagine a person who does not know that silent intercourse in which we examine what we say and what we do will not mind contradicting himself. And this means he will never be either able or willing to account for what he says or does, nor will he mind committing any crime, since he can count on its being forgotten the next moment. With regard to the third point, many people have witnessed unthinking men are like sleepwalkers. However, other people claim on the contrary that they have experienced thinking accompanies life and itself, the dematerialized quintessence of being alive. Concerning the second point, others object that the relationship of responsibility and efficacy also indicate that there is included an obligation and opening out of the person of values. And about the third, some people cite instances when obligation evidences once again what has already been explained in the preceding chapter, namely, that the will and the freedom of the person in their own dynamic way surrender to truth, that they have their own dynamic relation to truth.
To the first objection, we reply that thinking in its non-cognitive, non-specialized sense, as a natural need of human life, the actualization of the difference given in consciousness is not a prerogative of the few, but an ever-present faculty in everybody. As an illustration, take the case of a person who, for instance, when his action has as its object another person, the directing to the object must correspond to the value of the person. To the second objection, we say that the very fact that we relate responsibility directly to efficacy and can say that man as a doer of X is responsible for X reveals how complex as well as cohesive and condensed are the elements constituting the simple whole contained in the phrase man performs an action. Consider the situation where obligation is in a way a special stage in the dynamization of the will in its specific reference to truth. As to the third objection, we assert that responsibility informs us primarily about the person performing an act and fulfilling himself in the action. At times, we have seen that thinking must always begin afresh. It is an activity that accompanies living and is concerned with such concepts as justice, happiness, virtue, offered us by language itself as expressing the meaning of whatever happens in life and occurs to us while we are still alive. So we conclude that obligation both as an element in the total calling of man and as the concrete content of a particular action appears capable of telling much about the transcendence of the person. While discussing these points, we have realized that the very fact that we relate responsibility directly to efficacy and can say that man as a doer of X is responsible for X reveals how complex as well as cohesive and condensed are the elements constituting the simple whole contained in the phrase man performs an action. We have also come to see that thinking accompanies life in itself, the dematerialized quintessence of being alive. Lastly, it has become clear to us that obligation is in a way a special stage in the dynamization of the will in its specific reference to truth. So starting today, we'll strive to promote a more holistic and person-centered approach to sexual ethics, rooted in the truth of the human person and their capacity for love and self-giving. And that's all our repetition. Thank you for watching.